Okay, so I think we'll just get started with the webinar. Thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you Tim for joining for this. We'll just start by introducing ourselves. So I'm Keith.
I'm Katya. Hi.
And I'm Alana.
And we're all part of ESA's education team, and we provide projects like the Moon Camp Challenge. We work with space scientists and astronauts to provide these challenges right across Europe. The Moon Camp Challenge was run and created with Airbus Foundation and with Autodesk, and we have Julian from Airbus Foundation who's going to be watching the webinar with all of you. So the first thing we want to say is congratulations to all of the teams. You've done a brilliant job. You were the 12 best teams out of almost 300, so it's very impressive. The hard work that you put into making your lunar bases was very evident to us. Our space experts that were the judges of your entries were very impressed with the quality and the high level of these entries. All of the entries were judged on 4 main criteria. They were judged on their creativity, their feasibility, the quality of the 3D design, and the adaptability to the lunar environment. And all of you did great in every single area of this, so I think you deserve a big well done. So we've got Tim, who's an ESA astronaut, who's joining us today. Thanks again. And he's going to speak with you for a bit and answer some of your questions. So he was selected as an ESA astronaut in 2009 and graduated from his basic astronaut training in 2010. And he was the first British ESA astronaut to visit the ISS, the International Space Station. He launched in 2015. And he was on a 6-month mission called Principia, which was named after Isaac Newton's texts about the laws of motion and gravity. During his time on the space station, he did a spacewalk. He took part in more than 250 experiments, which is very impressive as well. And he also got chased around the space station by his colleague Scott Kelly in a gorilla suit. There's a brilliant video of that. If you've not seen it, I would definitely recommend watching it. He's also very passionate about education. He joins in with these things a lot, and he's helped inspire more than 1.6 million students across Europe during his time in space. He's helped with other school projects such as AstroPi, Mission Space Lab. He was also the Mission X ambassador in 2016, and he ran the London Marathon from space, which again was a very cool thing. So just now, astronauts only work on the ISS and on Earth, but hopefully soon we're going to see astronauts working on the moon and even further into the solar system. So I think that's enough from our side. We'll let Tim introduce himself and take it from there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Keith, and it's great to be joining you all this morning. And I'd just like to reiterate those words of congratulations. It's a huge achievement to be, part of this competition and to be in the top teams. They're selected as winners, so a really big well done. It's also a really important challenge. You heard there a little bit about, going back to the moon. Well, this is not just a concept that we're doing on paper. This is a reality. And the European Space Agency have long been working towards this concept of a moon village. And we've been building the steps towards that. We currently build the service module for the Orion spacecraft, which is going to be the spacecraft that will return astronauts to the moon. And we're currently in negotiations to build part of the Gateway, a small space station that's going to be in orbit around the moon. And we've heard this year that the United States want to accelerate that program. So they want to put astronauts back on the moon by 2024, which is a huge challenge, but very exciting that perhaps, me and my classmates might be involved in those missions. And for you, that your age groups certainly will be involved in missions to the moon and onto Mars. So really exciting times. I've seen the results of the competition. I've seen your entries, which are brilliant, fantastic designs. I really love the way that you'd thought about the challenges of radiation protection, of life support systems, of food production, and it really showed in the work and effort you had put in. I know that you've got lots of questions, so I think I will hand over to you now and hopefully be able to answer some of them.
Thank you very much, Tim. Okay, so we'll start with the first question from Team Astro Makers. Over to you.
Good morning, My name is Daniel. We are Astro Makers from Italy.
My name is Roberto. We are very happy to speak with you. This year at school we studied space and we were amazed by everything. Our question is, what is the strangest thing you ever made in space and how did you do it?
Thank you.
Hello, Team Astro Makers. Great question. I think we don't actually make that many things in space. We've been growing some plants, but the strangest thing I made was probably a tool using the 3D printer. When I was in space, the 3D printer hadn't been in use very long, and we were making a wrench, a torque wrench. Now, the first time we tried it, it was a disaster. The 3D printer didn't work very well in weightlessness. It was very brittle. It clogged up the jets. But in a matter of just a few weeks, we managed to change the design and really get a very, very good tool produced using the 3D printer in space. And that's a concept that we're looking at for use on the moon as well, as possibly using 3D printers to actually start building habitats. So I think that was the strangest and the best thing that we actually made in space, was getting the 3D printer to work. But great question.
Thank you very much. Okay, the next team to ask a question is Dream Camper.
We are Team Dream Camper. I'm Tian Ziyu.
I'm Li Jiangren. I'm Li Yichen. I'm Liang Jingyun.
Nice to meet you.
I'm very honored to ask you a question. Our question is, did you ever see space debris when you were on the ISS, and how does the station avoid being hit? How can the problem of space debris be solved?
Yeah, space debris is a huge problem. We don't actually see space debris on the space station because we're going so fast, 25 times the speed of sound, and the debris is going so fast and it's tiny. Normally we're talking about things that are just millimeters in diameter. But we do see evidence of space debris having hit the space station. You only need to go to the cupola window, and one of them has a chip in it where obviously something on the outside has hit the space station. When we go on a spacewalk as well, we have to be very careful of the handrails, because you can often see marks on the handrails where small pieces of debris have hit. And they're like bullet holes, sometimes actually penetrating through thin pieces of metal and sometimes just giving sharp edges. So we have to be careful not to rub our spacesuit gloves over these sharp edges in case we get a hole in our spacesuit and it depressurizes. So it's a big problem. We can avoid it because we have thrusters on the space station. So if we have radar tracking stations on Earth that tell us that a piece of space debris is coming towards us in enough time, we can use the thrusters on the space station to change the orbit. The problem is that the radar can only really pick up larger pieces of debris of about 5 centimeters and greater. And the space station is protected by bulletproof shielding to about 1 centimeter and less. So we have this range between 1 centimeter and 5 centimeters where the radar can't quite see it and the space station can't quite protect it. So that's really the most dangerous threat that the space station faces, is a hit from a piece of space debris. But we need to make really concerted efforts to try and clean up space. We're launching more and more satellites, and every satellite now that goes into space must have a means of either burning up in the atmosphere or disappearing off into deep space so that it declutters the area around Earth. But it's a big problem that we're working on.
Thank you very much. The next team will be Bendis. We can hand over to you to ask your question.
Hello, we are Team Bendis from Romania, and our question is, can you tell us more about your spacewalk? How did it feel and why was it interrupted?
Yes, hi Team Bendis. Good question, and the spacewalk was probably the best moment for me on my mission. Throughout most of the spacewalk, how do you feel? You're actually just working extremely hard. You have to really, really concentrate. It's physically demanding and very mentally demanding. You're always trying to think ahead as to what the next steps are. But at the same time as thinking ahead, you really need to concentrate on what you're doing every single second. Because if you make a mistake, if you let go, if you lose a tool, or if you get tangled in your safety tethers or your wires, it could be catastrophic. You're thinking about what your crewmate's doing, because often you'll be working at different parts of the space station. So I might be at one part, Tim Copra was off at a different part of the space station, but we really rely on each other. So you're always thinking about what they're doing and how they're getting on as well. So we had to finish the spacewalk a little bit early because Tim Copra's spacesuit started having water come into the helmet. And this is a problem that happened a few years ago with Luca Parmitano as well. A very dangerous situation because clearly there's a lot of water in our backpacks that are used for the cooling systems. And if that gets into our breathing system, you could actually drown in space, which nobody wants to see. So we had to get Tim Copra back into the airlock quite quickly and get his helmet off so that we could clean out the water inside.
Thank you very much. The next team we're going to is Mooncamp GG. So if you would like to go ahead with your question.
Okay, hi, this is Mooncamp GG from Shanghai Qingpu Senior High School. We are very honored to have the chance to talk with you. And please allow us to introduce ourselves. I'm Paper.
I'm Jarvis. I'm License. I'm Bruce.
And our question is, what was the biggest problems you had in your daily life on the ISS and how did you solve it?
Hi, Mooncamp. It's great talking to you this morning, and that's a good question as well. But you know, the biggest problem we have on the space station in our day-to-day lives is the amount of work we have to do, and it's a time management problem. All the crew members are really, really busy, and if something doesn't quite go wrong, if something doesn't quite go right in the day, then we have to reschedule everything. And it's like trying to choreograph this amazing event up there with 6 crew members doing different experiments at different times. And frequently during the day, an experiment will run long, or you might need to get a crew member to come and help you with something. And the moment that happens, the whole day's schedule needs to be reorganized, replanned, and thought about. And we can only do that with the help from the ground, which is why we have so much support from Mission Control, who are planning our day, rescheduling events. And you can imagine when cargo vehicles are coming and going, experiments have important timelines to be stuck to. We need to try and exercise as well and maintain the space station and do all the science. That's the greatest challenge we face, is just managing this very, very busy schedule up there. But we have a lot of help from ground to do that.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, the next team will be Moongag, if you would like to ask your question.
Hello, we are the Moongag team. Our names are Giol, Arnau, and Gil. We are from Barcelona in Catalonia.
We have enjoyed a lot learning about the moon and making a project to build a moon camp.
And our question for team is, when did you decide you wanted to be an astronaut, and how did you make it reality?
Hi, Team Moongag. Yeah, good question. When did I want to become an astronaut? Well, it was very in stages, really. I think when I was younger, I wanted to become an astronaut. But I started flying at a young age, and flying became my passion. And I didn't really know that there was a route to becoming an astronaut in Europe. Certainly when I was growing up and when I was working as a pilot, the European Space Agency didn't have any British citizens in the Corps, and it was a time where each nation would kind of submit their astronauts to ESA, and the UK weren't involved in human spaceflight. So I followed the program closely. I loved the shuttle missions. I loved what ESA was doing on some of their deep space robotic missions to Saturn's moons, for example. So I was fascinated by space. But it wasn't until I was in my 30s as a test pilot that the European Space Agency had a new selection process, and this time it was open to all European member states. So everybody in the UK could apply to become an astronaut. So that was really the time in my 30s when I thought this can become a reality. So I applied along with the nearly 8,500 other people in 2008, and was just very fortunate to get through that selection process and to be where I am today.
Great, thank you. The next team will be the Little Star of Dream Moon.
Hello everyone, we are from Suzhou High-Tech New District Experimental Primary School of China. Our team's name is The Little Star of Dream Moon. Our mentor is Miss Liu. My name is Wang Yihang. Our teammates are Xu Yichuan, Wang Qingya, and Fan Liuxuan. Our question is, how would the current spacesuits have to be adapted for astronauts living and working on the moon? Thank you.
Good morning, guys. Great to see you, and a brilliant question. And it's something that we're working really hard on right now, is how to adapt the spacesuits. So we currently have a spacesuit that's been designed for pure weightlessness, microgravity, that we call it, on the space station, which means that it can be very heavy, and it can be quite cumbersome on Earth, because when you're in weightlessness, that doesn't matter so much. You can maneuver a big heavy suit around. But when we go back to the lunar surface, of course, we want to make a suit that's actually as light as possible, because we now are working in a gravity environment. Although it's much less than Earth, it's 1/6 of Earth's gravity, it's still a gravity environment. So we want to make the suits lighter, and we definitely want to make them more flexible. At the moment, on a spacewalk outside the space station, we really don't use our legs very much at all. The only time we use our legs is if we need to put our feet into a foot plate and give us stability so that we can use our arms to work. But we don't walk anywhere, and we don't really need to bend our legs, and we don't need to bend at the waist to pick up anything. We simply turn upside down and change our body position. Of course, on the moon's surface, we're going to need to walk around, and we want to bend down, and we want to pick things up. So we're going to have to make a suit that's much lighter and much more flexible. And also, our current spacesuits, we can go out for about 8 hours on a spacewalk. Now, 8 hours is a good length of time, but it would be nice if we could spend longer, 12 hours out on a spacewalk. So we're looking at how we can extend the life support system. So enough oxygen, enough cooling water, and enough carbon dioxide scrubbing, for example, to be able to stay out longer. But these are challenges that we can overcome, and we're already working on how we're going to do that with a new spacesuit. But great question.
Thank you, Tim. So the next question will be from the lunar-based design from Thessaloniki, if you'd like to ask your question.
Good morning. We are Team Lunar-Based Design from Thessaloniki. My name is Clyde.
My name is Medina.
My name is Alfonso.
And the question is, when do you believe humans will return to the moon, and how will the lunar base help humanity both in space and on Earth?
Good morning. Yes, well, it's a really important question right now, is when will humans return to the moon? And the fact that the United States and NASA have set a goal now of 2024 means that we stand a much better chance of getting humans back to the moon in the early 2020s, early to mid 2020s. Europe is certainly very much a part of that mission. I said before, we designed the service module that's going to take those astronauts back to the moon. So Europe is very much involved in that partnership. So I think 2024 is a really tough challenge. There's a number of things that we still have to design to make that mission work. We need a lunar lander, and we need a lunar transit vehicle that's going to take astronauts from the Deep Space Gateway down to the moon. But it can be done. I think realistically it's going to be probably 2025 or 2026 when we see humans on the surface of the moon. But we're certainly aiming for 2024. That's the goal at the moment. And in terms of benefits to humanity, well, this time, of course, we're looking not just to go for a short period of time, but we're looking to do what you guys have been doing, and that's designing habitation modules that means that we can stay for extended periods on the moon. And that means we can do so much more scientific research. We can learn all of these amazing things that the moon has to offer us in terms of 4 billion years of our solar system's history, and telling us things that we don't know about our own planet. We can also use resources that are on the moon, the water ice, to create oxygen and to create fuel, and to be able to help support life and grow plants on the surface of the moon as well. So all of these things are going to help us to go further into the solar system, and also help us develop new technologies that can be used back on Earth as well.
Brilliant, thank you. So the next team will be Moonbase. You can go ahead with your question.
Hi, Mr. Tim Peake. We are Moon-based team from Qingpu Senior High School, Shanghai, China. We are glad having this chance to talk to you. And our question is, what are needed to build a real moon camp? Thank you.
Okay, what's needed? Again, really important question we're addressing right now. Well, clearly we need to take things to the moon. And so we need a heavy lift rocket. And there's a couple of those that are being designed right now. SpaceX Falcon Heavy. We've got the SLS, NASA's SLS heavy lift launcher. They're going to have the capability to take, significant payloads to start being able to build a moon base. But in addition to that, we want to try and make as much as we can on the surface of the moon, using the resources that are there already. And that means we don't have to lift them out of Earth's gravity and use fuel to get them to the moon. So what we need to do is design ways of actually using the lunar surface, maybe the lunar regolith. I spoke about the water ice that's on the surface of the moon, using all of these things that are already there to be able to help build the habitats that we need and help build the structures that we need. But that's, I think, probably one of the most important things in all of this in terms of what do we really need to make this a reality. Well, we really need a strong international partnership. We've had that throughout all the years of the International Space Station, and it's worked extremely successfully. And now moving forward to the moon, we want to build on that partnership, make it larger, make it stronger, because when we work together and when we collaborate, we're able to do amazing things, much more than any one nation can do by themselves. So I think probably the strongest element of all of that, it's not the technology, it's not the challenges of technology, it's the maintaining a good international partnership.
That's great. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, the team Jules Verne were unable to join us, but they did send in a video of them asking their questions. So we're just going to share that with you just now.
Bonjour! We are the team Jules Verne from France. And our question is, if you were to go to the moon, what would you like to do there?
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, a great question. What would you like to do? There's so many things that I think astronauts would like to do on the moon, and there's a few fun things that astronauts have already done on the moon. But for me, I think one thing I'd like to do is to actually be able to stand on the far side of the moon and to be able to look out into the universe without any light pollution at all, not even seeing the bright light or reflected off planet Earth. I think it would be the most incredible view that you could possibly imagine, to stand on the far side of the moon and look out at the universe. And I know that's obviously where we would like to build an observatory as well, so that we can see that incredible view of the universe.
Thank you very much. The next team to ask a question is Ant Nest Mooncamp. If you'd like to ask your question.
Hi. Hi, team.
Hello.
Hello.
What was your most memorable experience in space, and how did you feel coming back to Earth?
Hi, Team Ant Nest. Yeah, great question. I think the most memorable experience in space was leaving the airlock on the spacewalk. There's a moment there where you actually kind of lower yourself out of the hatch, and the Earth is 400 kilometers beneath you, and it feels very unusual, very surreal, very strange to think that you're going to fall down, but then of course when you let go with your hands, you don't fall, you just float. And so when you push yourself down through the airlock, it's an incredible moment. And then to actually see Earth and the solar system and the space station from outside on a spacewalk is definitely the most memorable part of the mission for me. So that was a fantastic experience. And how did I feel coming back to Earth? I was sad to leave the space station. It's an amazing place to live and work. It's a beautiful view of planet Earth. So it's very sad to say goodbye to space, but it's very happy to say hello to friends and family. And that's what I was looking forward to.
Thank you very much. So the next team will be Moon Entrepreneurs, if you would like to ask your question.
Hello, we're the team Moon Entrepreneurs. Our names are Alfonso and Paula. We're from the Canary Islands, Spain. And we're two passionate students that love ESA. the space career.
And we would like to ask a very interesting question. When you were on the ISS, did you notice if there was anything that needed to be invented or developed to make life easier for astronauts on space?
Yes, I mean, very interesting question. Good morning to you both. And I think some of the things that we're working on right now to make our life easier is how we can work more efficiently and more effectively. And that involves communication with the ground, and it involves video links, and it involves things like virtual reality and augmented reality. And the European Space Agency have got this brilliant device that we're working on called Mobile Procedure Viewer. And it can be worn on the wrist. Eventually, hopefully, we'll wear it as a pair of glasses. But the idea is that if you can have somebody on the ground actually coming on board the space station in a virtual environment and helping us do procedures, helping us do scientific experiments, then that can make the astronauts work very, very fast, much more efficiently. And that will be a great help to our daily life on the space station. And again, these technologies would be very useful for the moon as well. It all relies on very fast communications and large bandwidth. You obviously want video, not just voice. So you need large bandwidth, and you need very, very strong, robust communications. But that's what we're working on. And I think that's the next step that we'll see on the space station, is things like virtual reality, augmented reality, and eventually artificial intelligence as well, to be helping us in our day-to-day job.
Great, thank you. And finally, we've got a question from Team Love J Wings.
Hey there, we're Love J Wings from the Hangzhou Foreign Language School, Hangzhou, China. And here's a short introduction.
Hello, I'm Wendy.
Hi, my name's Aaron.
And hello, I'm Laura.
And this is Louis. Yeah. And the question that we want to ask is, in your opinion, are we able to build a permanent moon settlement in the next 50 years? What are some of the problems? And if so, would you like to settle there?
I firmly believe that, yes, we are going to be able to build a permanent lunar base in the next 50 years. In fact, I think we'll do it in the next 20 years. And yes, I would love to go on a mission to the moon. I think it would be any astronaut's dream to spend, a long period of time there, just like we do a 6-month mission on the space station, to do a 6-month mission on the moon. I was going to actually ask you guys, you're the ones who've put the work and effort in, as to what do you think the challenges are, and do you think we have the technology right now to do it? I'd be interesting to know what you think. Do you think we have the technology to do it right now?
It's kind of unsure, because this idea has been around for like a lot of years now, but we know that everybody's working on it. International groups are doing that, but we still want to know about from a professional view, because what we think is the biggest problem would be the materials to build and sustain this settlement, because we cannot bring too much materials from Earth, so we have to use the regolith and things on the moon. So we think that this could be the biggest problem.
Absolutely. I think you're right that the habitation modules are going to be the biggest problem. But I think that what's really exciting is we now have technologies that can do this, either, as I mentioned, in terms of 3D printing. Although I'm not convinced that 3D printing is going to be the first method used for habitation. I think it's going to be pressurized inflatable modules, because we now have very strong lightweight materials. We've already tested out on the space station. We have a module there called the beam, the expandable module, Bigelow's expandable module. So we're already experimenting in inflating things in space and using them as habitats to live. And so I think some sort of expandable, inflatable module, they might be the first as the cheapest and the easiest and the most lightweight solutions. And I think things like 3D printing using the lunar regolith, maybe even tunneling down under areas of the moon, these will be later technologies that will be employed for more permanent structures. But I certainly think we've got the technology right now to do it.
Great, thank you very much. So that's all the questions that we've had from all of the teams. I don't know, Tim, if you would like to make a few closing remarks just for the end of the webinar.
Well, yes, I'd just like to say thank you for everyone's time this morning. It's been great talking to you all. And again, huge congratulations on being winners for this amazing challenge. I think the work that you've done is great. Keep it up. We need bright young scientists and engineers, astronauts and explorers in order to make all of these challenges become a reality, not just for exploration into the solar system, but also for helping to protect our own planet and make it a safer and better environment to live and work in. So thank you very much for all of your efforts. Well done.
And thank you, Tim, for joining us. And I think everyone here would like to say goodbye and give you a wave and say thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Just to all of the teams, I would just like to say as well, yeah, we really hope that you enjoyed taking part in the Moon Camp Challenge, and we hope you continue all the hard work that you put into this throughout in your school, and hopefully one day, who knows, you might be the future lunar architect. So thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your days.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye.